It's hot take season, so we're going to try to add a little bit of sanity to the mix. Decide if the weekend's biggest footy stories are real or ridiculous. Let's get into it. Broncos, Panthers, 16-14. It was insane. We were talking just before about you think that maybe Reece Walsh missing that conversion actually benefited the Broncos. Do you want to take us through why?
I think momentum's huge. If in front of a big Suncorp Stadium crowd, Broncos had all the running. I just fear that if that kick goes over and they get back to within 2 points, I think the whole mindset shifts for the whole team. Not only the whole team, but Reece Walsh in particular. Reece, what we've come to know is when the chips are down, that's when he stands up. So I reckon after missing the kick, he runs back saying, hey, I should have got that and I'm going to have to pull something out. But not only that, I reckon 2 points behind, the Broncos then start to play field position type of footy. They start to think about field position so that the 2-point field goal comes into play, and obviously the penalty goal. Being 4 points in the deficit meant that they had to keep playing, which meant that the momentum they had, they really rolled with. Any sport that we saw this weekend, we saw what momentum can do. I watched the AFL Grand Final that was tit for tat for 3 quarters, and then Brisbane put on 9 goals in 10 minutes. It was crazy. So, I think that was enough to keep them rolling. But what a wonderful game of footy. Like, what a position that our sport is in. Yeah. I thought last week was a little lull for finals footy. The first week and the third week they've really reinforced how wonderful our sport is.
What was your take on the Hunt-Reno combination in the halves?
I just like the way they stuck at it. Yeah. I'd probably start by saying I think I'm done with nighttime footy.
Yeah.
If we have to see it all year, obviously we have to see it, but I'd love to see daytime footy all the way through the finals. I think it's suited the Broncos. It'll be interesting to see. The Broncos haven't played at night now for a month, and their 2 best games have now, like leading into the grand final, have been during the day.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting. I think if you think that Adam Reynolds was important on the weekend, I think that triples come grand final time, a 7:30 kickoff, on a slippery Accor Stadium track.
Yep.
You see his kicking game really come to the fore, and they just got it right. I love that they brought Ezra Mam on when they did. I thought they might put him at 9. Obviously, switching Ben Hunt was a pretty clever decision as well. So I love where they got to. I'd probably resist the temptation to start Hunt this week. I'd probably stick to what worked on the weekend. I love Ezra Mam coming on with a point to prove, and I think we didn't see enough from Ezra on the weekend, which tells me that he's in for a big one come grand final day. I think on the weekend was a great game for him to just get his rhythm back and find his feet, because he did enough to contribute.
Yep.
But something tells me he might have a few big moments come grand final night.
We're just talking about it, so it will be a night game, obviously. Is it just Renault's kicking or his game management, or why is daytime footy so different to nighttime, and why does it benefit Adam Reynolds?
Well, I think it's helped the Broncos get their groove back. Obviously, they were a team that fumbled around for a long time. And did so in most of the Raiders match, and were behind for a lot of this match. I worry about what Melbourne would do them if they let them get to a lead.
Yep.
It's different footy at night. Accor Stadium, as I said, traditionally a slippery surface, so you can't attack with the same freedom that they have been able to. But the Broncos are a team that are never out of it. They've got some players that you'd love to see have some success. Ben Hunt's the first one that comes to mind. Yep. Back in a Broncos jersey, probably thought his hopes of going to a grand final again were done and dusted. But yeah, to see him back there and moving to 9 sort of halfway through the match, I can see him having a big impact. The Broncos, to me, yesterday, they looked like a bit of a Broncos team of old. They looked like a team that wanted to really take it to opposition and felt like they really deserved to be there. We spoke a lot in the lead-up about what we thought the Broncos had to do defensively. And while they sort of defended their structures on the edges similarly to they have all year, I thought they really went after them early, which sent a bit of a message to the Panthers that, hey, we're here for the fight. Payne Haas, I feel like he's one of them guys we just take for granted. Like we get to see it so often that, we take him for granted. He played 80 minutes, limped around. We spoke about him stretching his calves in the in goal and thought he was gone for all money, but what a player. And good to see a Broncos team that's very exciting to watch. So it's going to be a wonderful grand final.
It's interesting because I love watching the Broncos. So yesterday they came back from 14 down. Canberra came back from 16 down. there's been 5 times this year they've come from at least 14 down. They just feel like they're never particularly out of it. What I was really impressed by, probably the most, was their goal line defence. Panthers had something like 44 tackles inside the Broncos 20. It's a day game. They were clearly fatigued, but they looked more than up for it.
I think the Panthers ran out of juice.
Yeah.
That's why I love daytime footy, because it's a war of attrition. It's whoever can hang on the longest. And if you notice, a lot of the defensive efforts, they were different to what you'd naturally see all year, even from the Panthers, like Blaze Talangi knocking a ball down on 5th tackle. Yeah. You think of the Willison try, like that was a Panther diving in between a pass to knock it down, which leads to a try. But that's what fatigue does for you. It forces you to deal with going away from your systems. That's why I'd love to never see a night finals match ever again, because every game we've seen at night, it's delivered tenfold, and it makes it a war of attrition, and I love to see that.
So no one's been rubbed out by the judiciary. Perfect. Which means the Broncos going to have a bit of a decision to make. You've got to bring Paddy Carrigan back in, but what should they do? And I guess how will he even affect the team's makeup when you've got someone that big coming back into the front row?
You've got a few options. You'd be tempted to leave Carrigan on the bench and bring him on for the second wave. But I'd probably move Smoothie straight to 9. I thought he'd done a good job defensively.
Yep.
And I think we've seen the best of the Broncos this year when a couple of their stars are out. And I just think that's because guys like Smoothie, they're doers, they're not talkers. They're not out there to tell anyone how we should be playing footy. They're just making their tackles. And I think he's a very Madge Maguire type of player. So I'd move him to 9. And then when you need to bring Mam on, Ben Hunt goes into 9 and Mam comes into 6. And then, you've got Smoothie that can go back to the bench and he can come back and play in the middle as a 13 roaming type player as well. So, it's going to be interesting to see which way he goes. But a huge year, and a fresh Pat Carrigan too. We'll see how the Broncos sort of fare after that sort of match. The teams this year that have played in grueling day matches have struggled come the next week, and the Melbourne, no one's had a softer run in the Melbourne with the extra days break and stuff like that. And I mean, your first 2 days are going to be about recovery, aren't you? So what Melbourne would have been able to do is get all their recovery out of the way before all the media commitments come. So you're going to have the Broncos are going to have to juggle recovery and media and training, and so they're going to have their work cut out. But there's a few really cool storylines for the Broncos I'll lean on for next Sunday night.
So is it overhyped, you reckon, this extra 2 days, or is that a legit thing which the Storm have got a huge advantage?
Well, I guess the question is, would you take it if you were offered it?
Oh,
and I mean, the answer's yes. So I don't think you can say it's overhyped.
Yeah.
I think, is this the first time we've seen a prelim with such a big gap in between? Yeah. Obviously, we dodged the AFL Grand Final, which kind of makes sense too. But yeah, it'll be interesting. And as I said, the way the final series have gone, it's the teams that have had the rest that have fared the best. We've now seen another season where you can't win the final from outside the top 4.
Yep.
And if Penrith can't do it, I'm afraid no one can do it. So I don't think we'll ever see anyone win outside the 4. But Penrith are a championship side. If you're going to lose a prelim, that's how you lose it. Like they left everything on Suncorp Stadium. So I'm just in awe of them. Watching Ivan and Nathan in the press conference, I'm a big believer that it's the parents' job to control the thoughts and ideas of their kids. You shouldn't leave it up to rugby league role models. But if you wanted to steer your kids in the direction of a player, they should be basing their game and their life off it's Nathan Cleary. I loved the way he spoke in the press conference. Clearly disappointed. But sort of looked like he understood that's footy too, and they left it all on the field, and it just wasn't quite good enough in that game. So I love when he said, this is what it feels like to get knocked out before a grand final. And he was saying it with a serious face, but Ivan had a little chuckle next to him. But what a player, man. He just blank-faced the whole game. The field goal at the end, we don't see Nathan mess a lot of those moments up. Probably made the wrong decision in trying to backtrack, in my opinion. And it's easier for me to sit here and say, watching on the couch, but I thought they created enough momentum in that set where they probably should have just had a crack at a try on the last play. Yeah. But yeah, first grand final in 5 or 6 years that the Panthers will be able to sit down and watch, and what a reign it's been. And I think there's plenty more to come for the Panthers.
I thought that was interesting in the presser that Ivan was saying, this isn't the end of anything. We've got plenty of young blokes, which they do. It's not like Nathan Cleary's particularly old. I think he's 27, 28.
Some of their biggest challenges are going to come now because what Melbourne's been able to do for a long time, solidify themselves in that top 4 for a very long time.
Yeah.
No one's been able to win comps like Penrith have. but their challenge is going to come now. I've really enjoyed watching the season that they've had. In many ways, what they've done this year has probably been more successful than what they have in others, which sounds crazy because they didn't win the comp, but round 12 they were last. There's a lot of good lessons in that Penrith team, and I know that not all young kids get the chance to be recruited and jump in a team like the Panthers, but watching Blaze Talangi and Casey McLean, watching them being able to learn each week but still be in a championship side and still be competing in a preliminary final was really cool to watch. Like they had moments in the grand final again that probably showed their immaturity, but they were 2 points away from a grand final.
Well, Casey McLean was also nominated for Centre of the Year.
Unbelievable. As I said, like it's a lesson for young kids that putting yourself in the right environment could be more important than the money that you're earning. I'm sure both of them are compensated quite well financially, but as I said, watching them join a team where they can learn each week, but then still remain in the team and compete is really cool. Because I reckon them two guys at another club this year probably don't see out every game, and at some point the coach would start to look for another option.
So it's going to be the Storm and the Broncos. Been seeing plenty of them. It's been something like, they've played 3 times the last 6 weeks. There was a September game, there was a late August one. Do you have any early thoughts and feelings on how this is going to go? We're going to be saying the same things all week about the grand final to what we're saying about the Broncos Panthers. Yeah.
The general consensus with the Penrith Broncos game was, if you're a betting man, you'd have to back the Panthers because we were more certain about what they'd deliver. We were all also in agreement that if the Broncos got it right, they could win the game as well, which is going to be exactly the same for the grand final. As I said, I think Adam Reynolds having that moment and shutting up a lot of people, I think that sends him into the grand final in a great position. And heading into a night match, I think his kicking game will... He played a different style of game, yesterday. It was a game that he needed to play. Yep. I thought he stood up defensively. He did his job defensively. But yeah, come Sunday, I think his kicking game could well be the difference.
It's interesting looking at, if we move on to the Storm, I thought that the entire preamble for me was I thought they were just going to run serious traffic at Jerome Hughes, really test out that forearm of his where he had it all strapped. But obviously he's just come back from a shoulder injury as well. He made 9 tackles during the game.
I just think it's dangerous to really target one area.
Yeah.
I've said it before, but think to when a team gets a player put in the sin bin. The talk, if you're the attacking team, the talk is always just stick to our system and something will pop up. The teams that go wrong in those 10-minute periods are the ones that chase the hole that the player in the sin bin left.
Yep. You've
just got to stick to your systems. Melbourne were pretty close to the best we've seen them in a very long time. Cam Munster was back to his best. Stefano Utukamanu was... To see a young kid just say, hey, I'm going to take Adam Fanua-Blake on and I'm going to take it to this pack. In a day and age where you don't get to see that a lot from props, let alone young props, I think that was a coming-of-age game for him for sure.
It seemed like with Munster, now he never has quiet games, he's Cameron Munster, but he is a moment's man. That's the best I've seen him play in a while. Is there anything you noticed of how the Storm have managed to unlock the best of Cameron Munster in the last 2 weeks?
He's just running the footy. I think I was coached by Rowan Smith in Leeds, and he said he'd love to see a stat on how many times tries happen after halves run the footy. He used to say to us all the time, good things happen when halves run the ball. I think Cameron Munster's at his best when he's bouncing around. Very similar, he reminds me, very similar to a Daly Cherry Evans. Yep. Daly's at his best when he's jumping in at dummy half and scooting out and bouncing around and little things like that. So he had the zip back in his step. Jerome Hughes was unbelievable. I can't believe people were even talking about whether he's going to be okay injury-wise. Like the Melbourne Storm are the most professional outfit we've seen in the last 20 years in our sport. Like they're not going to send him on the field if he's not right. He was unbelievable. Pappenhausen back, done his job. All the returning players done their job. So once again, if you're a betting man, based on what the teams are most likely to put out there, you'd say that the Melbourne Storm are most likely to play a brand that's going to hold them in better stead.
Yep.
But there's a team on the other side that if they can stay within reach and if they can get going and build a bit of momentum, they're very hard to stop. They come downhill thick and fast.
Talk to us about Cronulla. So a lot of the immediate feedback after the game, people were saying, when Will Kennedy got called out in the line, Munster did the smaller kick through, Pappenhausen runs through. Still the first half. Outside of that, though, I thought Kennedy had a pretty decent game. We've said that maybe the Sharks do need a different style of fullback. Has that changed for you in any way?
Yeah, I've been thinking, I've had a different train of thought on that. I've been adamant that Nico needs a fullback that's going to help him out a bit more. But then it got me thinking, when I watch Will Kennedy play, he kind of looks like a really well-behaved kid, a kid that you'd be really proud of because he follows the rules and he doesn't break away from much. So I guess the question that Sharks need to ask is, have they created that role for Will because they think that's the limit of his capabilities? Or is it because they think that that's the best style of fullback to be successful? I think if you watch the last two sets of the game, and I actually seen this, there was a game against the Warriors this year at Shark Park where I think once again they were within a try with a couple of minutes to go and they had a few yardage sets coming out of their end to score points. And I seen the exact same thing that night to what I did on the weekend. I think they were behind with 2 minutes to go and Nico Hines gets the ball and he looks to the right to put a kick over for the winger. Now the Storm winger's in exact right spot so he can't kick. But if you watch for the rest of that set, Will Kennedy sits behind the ruck. So he's waiting for a moment to then be there to take advantage with support play. A fullback in that moment shouldn't be waiting for a moment. He should be creating a moment. So Nico, to me, in those last two sets, was the only player that was trying to move around and create a pass. I think if you had Melbourne in that exact same position and they needed points coming out of yardage, you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to go Hughes out the back to Munster, out the back to Pappenhausen, and then they're going to have a crack. The interesting part to it, if you do go back and watch the last two sets, Nico gets caught on play 3-on-1 and then Braden Trindle steps up.
Yep.
He throws to Renato Mulatalo out the back of a back rower. They actually roll 30 metres down and get tackled near the sideline. If you look who comes to dummy half the next play, it's Will Kennedy. So he's always following the play, but imagine if he was the sweep runner out the back of that play and then he's got Mulatalo and Kyle Lero outside him, then that's a line break. That's a genuine opportunity. Then on the next play, instead of one of your key spine players going to dummy half, he should be getting back on his bike on the other side to add a layer on the other side. So to me, he's waiting for moments. He needs to create moments. Nico gets so much criticism. I feel for him because he's the only creative force in the team at times.
Yep.
Them two sets showed that for me and I've seen it before. He's the only one that's trying to create something. So the question now is, does Will have that in him? I think by the numbers that he's churned this year, I think he has it in him. 13 try assists. Try assists can be misleading because some of Will's are probably supporting and then tipping, getting the last pass. But yeah, so my question is, have we been unfair that he's not the right fullback, or is it just a case that he's sticking so black and white to the role that he's been asked to play?
I guess we're going to find out very soon. Will Kennedy is off contract, so...
They haven't re-signed him?
Haven't re-signed
So
him.
to me, that suggests maybe they are starting to think along the lines. I'm begging for Craig Fitzgibbon to finally make the decision and just swap the numbers. I think Nico's been so hell-bent on trying to prove people that he can... I think they're all just... They don't want to seem to be listening to the outside noise.
Yep.
When we all know they're listening to the outside noise. It's all there. I think if you swapped his number, you'd be telling everyone watching the game, hey, we just need Nico to play well. And when we lose, we're going to blame Braden from now on because he's wearing the 7.
Yep.
And I think Braden can play a role much like a Jamal Fogarty. Probably to a better standard because he actually has a running game and he kicks well, but stop banging your head against the wall. Stop trying to prove to people that, hey, I'm going to stick at it and I'm going to come out the other side. Someone at the Sharks needs to make the decision for Nico and say, you're going to wear the 6. And that's going to relieve so much pressure for him.
One place that the Sharks did have success was against Melbourne's left edge. So you've got Munster, Jack Howarth on the left side. Both Katoa's tries were through there. It looked like Munster either had a miscommunication inside of him, whatever the edge, I think that's Eli Katoa's side, or like with Howarth, I'm not sure what it was, but I was looking at the stats. That's probably where most teams have been directing most of their traffic at with Melbourne. If the Sharks can exploit it, Broncos definitely can. Do you think that's a misread from Munster, or is it just going down the line from the edge and we're saying, oh, Jack Howarth missed a tackle, but...
Yeah, it's probably a combination. But if you think about most people's knock on Melbourne this year was their defence has been un-Melbourne-like in terms of their consistency. Melbourne will give you plenty of opportunities because you're seeing a change of the guard. You've got guys like Howarth in their back line that they just can't defend with the same consistency that senior players can. So they'll get their opportunities. It's whether or not they can take advantage of them. But yeah, it's going to make for a great grand final. I think you're going to have two teams defensively that actually give the opposition looks. So it could just be a tit for tat, try for try game and see bit of a shootout and see who comes out at the end of it.
Perfect. So I was sitting in the post-match presser watching Fitzy go through everything, saying we're not going anywhere, we're not going to go backwards, which I think is believable. They've got a core team there. He seemed a little bit over the whole siege mentality conversation that's been going on for the last fortnight. What was your take on that?
He seemed exhausted.
Yeah.
I reckon he was privately seething, if I'm honest. I got to grow up watching Craig Fitzgibbon. Anyone that did would know that he was a doer. He didn't talk, he just did. He was so tough. He went about his business, and he come up with big plays when he needed to. But what did he say? He said there's winning a grand final is the ultimate respect.
Yep.
There's disrespect, and then there's credibility. And he said that we're somewhere there in the middle. And I just think the Sharks wasted way too much energy talking about people respecting them. Like, tough people just show people they're tough. They don't talk about being tough. Based on, as I said, what I think Craig Fitzgibbon stands for, I think he would have been a little bit disappointed. They've got a great team there. They need to figure out that finals games are won when you can step to a new level. The Sharks have been one of the most consistent sides outside of Melbourne for 3 or 4 years. So they need to be really pleased about what they've achieved, but they need to stop being in denial about what it's going to take to go to the next level as well.
So they completed at 87%. They were the same as the Storm. I guess my point is, I think a lot of teams would have been 40 down after that first half against the Storm. The Sharks can definitely take that away, but do you think that was them stepping up, or do you think they have another gear in them?
They've proved for a long time now they don't have another gear. I mean, that's what a lot of our fullback chat is. They need another attacking threat. In saying that, Nico put Billy Burns through on halfway. Yeah. He put Britton Okora over, which should have been a try for all money, and it took a special play from the Storm. So they're getting closer, but they can't just keep pretending like being a consistent team is enough to win a comp, because the Broncos have been one of the most inconsistent teams this year, but they've got players that can go to another level. The Sharks just don't have that. The game against the Storm kind of went the way I thought it might. I thought the previous 2 games, I thought the teams they played terrible, yep, and they just capitalised. And you can only play who's in front of you. I get that. But they got the worst version of the Raiders we've seen all year. And then they had to go to Melbourne, and Melbourne force you to search for points. And they just don't have the attack that can search for points. So they're in a really good place. Adam Fanua-Blake and Blake Brayley have... What they've found with them two, I think it's going to hold them. It's going to mean they're going to continue to be a really consistent team, but they've got to find a way to go to a new level. And I think a few of the things we've discussed today could just help with that.